Welcome back to Steel City Sports. So today I'm going to be counting down my top 5 candidates for the NFL Coach of the Year award in the 2024 season. So this award is a little tricky because it's not quite like some of the other awards around the NFL. Like MVP, for example, usually goes to the quarterback on the best team. That's not exactly how Coach of the Year works, because if it was literally just the best coach, Andy Reid would have been Coach of the Year the last 5 years. But that's not really how Coach of the Year works in recent memory. It usually goes to the coach that supremely overachieved just based on their preseason expectations. So I quickly want to look at like the last 5 Coach of the Year award winners to kind of highlight that this is not particularly for the best coach. It's really for the one that overachieved the most. That's what this award has really become. So last year, Kevin Stefanski won it, rightfully so. I made a video about it around this time last year about why he should have won. He had so much instability at the quarterback position, 5 different starters, including Deshaun Watson, a rookie, a 63-year-old Joe Flacco, and still was able to win 11 games and get into the playoffs. So he really overachieved in his situation. 2022, Brian Daboll won Coach of the Year in his first year as an NFL head coach. Was he the best coach that season? No. It was because he took a New York Giants team that had literally zero expectations. No one thought that team was going to be good. And he got them to 9 wins, got them into the playoffs, and actually won a playoff game against the Minnesota Vikings. That's why he won Coach of the Year. 2021, Mike Vrabel won Coach of the Year. Again, he wasn't the best coach that year, but when you look at his story, he had Ryan Tannehill in a conference with Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and was the 1 seed over all those other teams. So he really overachieved given that his quarterback was mediocre at best, and he was the 1 seed over some really dominant teams. 2020, Kevin Stefanski yet again won it. This was Kevin Stefanski's first year in Cleveland. Again, another team that had zero expectations. You go to the year prior for the Cleveland Browns was the Freddie Kitchens year where they were a fucking train wreck. They were literally a circus show that year. And Kevin Stefanski comes in and instantly turned them into an 11 or 12 win team. They beat my Steelers in the wild card round of the playoffs, and then they almost beat the Chiefs. They came within a Chad Henne slide of actually beating the Chiefs in the playoffs that year. And then 2019, John Harbaugh won the award because we've talked about this in the past. Lamar Jackson really saved John Harbaugh's career because they kind of came out of nowhere. Like in 2018, it was Flacco's last year there as the starter. He was looking really bad. He got benched for a rookie Lamar. They went into that season not really knowing what they were going to be because they knew 2019, this is Lamar Jackson's year. What are the Ravens going to be going forward? It was kind of up in the air, and then they just turned around and won 14 games, and Lamar was the MVP. So that's why Harbaugh got that Coach of the Year. So I wanted to mention these guys just to kind of highlight to you guys that Coach of the Year is not necessarily the best coach out there. Like, I don't have Andy Reid on here. I don't have Sean McVay on here, guys like that, because it's not about that. It's about the overachievers. So let's get into my top 5 candidates right now. Coming in at number 5, I have Dan Campbell. I can't put him higher for the simple fact that we knew the Lions were going to be good this year. So expectations were already really high for this Lions team, but I still wanted to give Dan Campbell a lot of credit for what he's done in Detroit. I think it is a generational turnaround, and I think Dan Campbell really deserves the credit as an all-time great culture builder when he went to a franchise that was a laughingstock in the league for decades, and he went there and turned them into a powerhouse pretty quickly. His 3rd year there, they were in the NFC Championship game. So Dan Campbell, he's not going to win this award because, like we said, it really comes down to expectations. This Lions team already had a lot of expectations on them. But I wanted to give them a lot of credit because right now they are the Super Bowl favorite. They're 9-1. They only have 1 loss on the season. They just hung 52 points on an NFL team in Jacksonville. So they're really dominant. And I think you really could have made a legit argument that Dan Campbell should have won this award last year, although I think Stefanski deserved it a little more just because of the instability he had at the quarterback position. But Dan Campbell deserves a lot of credit. I think he's really climbed his way into the top 5, and it's kind of a shame that he doesn't already have one of these awards because he really does deserve it for how he's just transformed the culture of the Detroit Lions as to just 5 years ago, they were a fucking embarrassment to the league, and now they're the Super Bowl favorite. Number 4, we go from Dan Campbell to Dan Quinn, and I think he has a better case than Dan Campbell because There were no expectations for this team. Outside of like your diehard Commanders fans, I don't think anyone saw Washington being this good. You look at how they've been over the past couple of years. They've been a train wreck. They've been legitimately one of the worst teams in the NFL. There's a reason why they were picking number 2 overall. And when you just look at last year, how they were so bad under that regime with Ron Rivera, Eric Bieniemy, and Sam Howell, to go from that to then this year, you just start over from scratch with a brand new rookie quarterback, and you're going to be a playoff team. Unless the Commanders suffer some big collapse, I don't see it happening because Jane Daniels is already an elite-level quarterback. The first 8 weeks of the season, Jane Daniels played at an MVP level, and there was a good stretch where it looked like they were going to win the NFC East, but they're still going to be a playoff team this year. Like the way that they've just transformed this organization in 1 year from a joke to a team picking second overall to now they're a competitive team. And it's not like they have a bunch of superstars on defense either, but I think Dan Quinn, obviously being a defensive guy, he's done a really good job of coaching up that defense, getting the most out of his guys. He made a really smart decision to bring in his guy, Bobby Wagner. Obviously, they have ties back to whenever they were both in Seattle on the Super Bowl team. Bobby Wagner's been incredible. They made the trade for Lattimore from New Orleans. Like, this is a real legit team that I think can actually win a playoff game. And if you would have told me that before the season, I would have laughed in your fucking face. I would have said, you're out of your fucking mind. But look at what Dan Quinn has done here, changing this team around. He has to get a lot of credit. He deserves it. Coming in at number 3, we have Kevin O'Connell. So going back to the offseason, them letting go of Kirk Cousins and replacing him with Sam Darnold, I thought was just a disaster. Like, I was like, Sam Darnold has been a perpetual loser everywhere he's gone in the NFL. The Jets, mess. Carolina, mess. You can say it's Carolina all you want, but he had DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey. He had players there. He went to the Niners. He couldn't beat out Mr. Irrelevant. He goes to Minnesota. I'm like, really? This is the guy that you're going to pick over Kirk Cousins to lead your franchise going forward? I was wrong because they're better this year. They are better this year with Sam Darnold than any year they ever were with Kirk Cousins. They're sitting at 8-2 right now. I thought this was going to be a 4th place team in the NFC North. I thought that they were going to be, like, at best, a 6-win team. They're going to easily be a playoff team this year. They're one of the most dominating teams on both sides of the football. Their offense is one of the best in the league. Sam Darnold started off the year as an MVP candidate, by far and away playing the best football of his career. This is the version of Sam Darnold. This is why he got drafted number 3 overall, is because the Jets thought that they were getting this version of Sam Darnold because he has looked incredible. Kevin O'Connell has worked wonders with this guy. Like, it's not really a surprise that Kirk Cousins and Sam Darnold both had the best years of their career under Kevin O'Connell, because I really think he is establishing himself as one of the greatest offensive minds in the game today. You know, this guy is really an offensive genius. He comes from the Sean McVay tree. So I think just given the expectations, they weren't looked at as a real team, and now they're an 8-2 team right now. He has Sam Darnold playing this high a level. They're an overall dominating team. He has to be a top 3 candidate right now. And my runner-up so far is Jim Harbaugh of the Los Angeles Chargers. This team won 5 games last year. 5. And if you're a longtime listener of Steel City Sports, you know exactly how I felt about their coach last year. Brandon Staley was public enemy number 1 on this channel. I don't think we shit on anyone more than Brandon Staley. And I said after that loss to the Raiders where they dropped 63 on the Chargers, I was like, if Staley isn't fired within a couple days, I'm blackballing the Chargers. They'll never be talked about on this channel ever again. Thankfully, for their sake, they did that. Not only did they get rid of him, but they brought in an A-plus head coach in Jim Harbaugh coming off a national title win at Michigan. Like, the gap between Brandon Staley and Jim Harbaugh is the size of the fucking Grand Canyon. Like, you can't even really quantify the upgrade at coach. Like, I just, it's incredible what Jim Harbaugh has done here with the Chargers. He's put them back on the map as a real team. Like I said, this team won 5 games last year with a top 5 quarterback. This part of the season, they're 7-3. Like, they're already feeling the effect of Jim Harbaugh having an immediate turnaround of their franchise. And you could argue they had a better roster last year. Like, they had Keenan Allen was a top 10 receiver last year. Mike Williams, when he played, was really good to start off the season last year. Like, they had those receivers. They had good running back play from Austin Eckler, of course. And I think you can argue they downgraded because they lost those playmakers all, and they brought in young guys. They brought in Ladd McConkey. They're relying on Quentin Johnston. A lot of people thought was a bust last year. And they're better. They're like far and away a better team because they have an identity. They did not have an identity under Brandon Staley. They have an identity under Harbaugh. Like, they know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to play tough guy football. They're just going to beat the shit out of you. And that's exactly what the Joe Alt pick signified, you know. It's not what I would have done. I would have taken Malik Neighbors for sure, but that's not Harbaugh's philosophy. Harbaugh is, we're going to pound the fucking rock down your throat. We're going to beat you up on defense, and we're going to lean on our top 5 quarterback to make big plays when we need them. That all stems from Harbaugh's philosophy. He has this proven track record of immediate success everywhere he's gone, and we're witnessing that right now with the Los Angeles Chargers. I feel like I'm going to take a lot of flack for putting Mike Tomlin at number 1, especially after the Steelers lost to the Cleveland Browns last night on Thursday Night Football. But like I've been saying in the past, the Browns are still a really good football team. They just had a bottom 5 quarterback. You give them a functioning service NFL-level quarterback in Jameis Winston, they're not a bad football team. So if you want to hear my thoughts on that specific game, I already put a video out about that earlier today. But that game does not change the fact that I still think Mike Tomlin is the coach of the year. When you simply look at the expectations for the Pittsburgh Steelers going into this NFL season, a lot of people wrote off the Steelers. A lot of people thought that this is finally going to be the year where Tomlin and the Steelers kind of implode. I know Colin Cowherd said Mike Tomlin's probably going to be in a broadcast booth next year. That was just totally insulting. And also, when you just look at like the crazy offseason with all the bold moves we made with switching out all our quarterbacks, every single quarterback we had last year between Pickett, Trubisky, and Rudolph, they're all gone. We bring in 2 guys viewed as negative assets between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, and they both played some of their best football. You know, this is the best Russ has looked since he left Seattle. Justin Fields played his best NFL football with the Steelers. Justin Fields went 4-2 had 10 total touchdowns with only 2 total turnovers. Russell Wilson's 4-1 with the Steelers, and like I said, playing his best ball since Seattle has really changed around the dynamic of the Steelers' offense. And I give Tomlin a lot of credit for making that big move from Fields to Russ. I think that took a lot of balls. I don't think a lot of people would have had the gut to make that, because had that move failed, because think, at that point, Fields was still playing well. The team was 4-2. If he would have made the switch to Russ and it would have failed, he could have easily lost the locker room in doing something like that. But he stuck to his guns. He knew it was the right move to make. That was just a really impressive move because Russ has really been a big upgrade over Fields, and Fields was already doing well. And then you look at the defense. I think this is the best the defense has looked in the T.J. Watt era. I think it's just a big credit to Tomlin. And they're just a really dominant team. They're still the team that has the most wins over 500 teams. The Falcons, the Broncos, the Chargers, the Commanders, and the Ravens. The Steelers have the most wins over 500 teams. They're still sitting atop the AFC North. They beat the Ravens without even scoring a fucking touchdown. Like, I think that's really impressive to not even score a touchdown and yet beat the team that everyone considers a contender. So, and on top of that, we beat Washington the week before. I think that they're so dominant, and looking at the fact that everyone had them written off, Mike Tomlin should be the coach of the year this year. So that's been it for my top 5 coach of the year candidates. Definitely let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you made it this far, please like and subscribe.